Hi there, I'm Bailey Murphy. Thanks so much for joining us for Best Practice Grade 4 Unit Rounding. Before we start our work with rounding, I want you to take a minute and look at these two pictures. So what if I told you that there are better strategies to round than a rounding roller coaster? So throughout this video, we're going to talk about a lot of place value strategies using number line and student understanding of place value relationships to round numbers. And we're going to kind of stay away from tricks like the rounding roller coaster like you see on the screen. In this 4th grade rounding unit, students will be asked to round multi-digit numbers up to 10,000 to the nearest tens, hundreds, or thousands place using visual models and number lines. What does student learning look like in the classroom during a grade 4 rounding unit? Students should be given lots of opportunities to round numbers to the tens, the hundreds, and the thousands place. They should be given opportunities to use number lines such as scale number lines, which have all the numbers written on there for students. And they can also use open number lines, which are number lines that have no numbers, and students have to use their knowledge of their number and the value they're rounding to be able to find the endpoints and the midpoint. As students progress through the unit, they're going to use their knowledge of rounding to be able to connect to real-world situations such as distance traveled in a certain month, and they'll be able to make some mental calculations with addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division using their rounded numbers to help them find a reasonable estimate. The MTRs connected to this are 2, 5, and 6. What does student learning sound like in the classroom? Students should be able to answer a variety of questions such as what number is directly in the middle of the two multiples on your number line. Using place value language, they should be able to explain that if I have 1,000 on one side and 2,000 on the other, the midpoint would be 1,500. How does knowing the middle number help? Students should be able to describe that if I plot a number on a number line and it comes before or after the midpoint, I'm able to determine which endpoint it's closest to and then know how to round it. If your number line were counting by tens, what number would it round to? Students need to be able to demonstrate flexibility by rounding one single number to multiple place values, to the tens, to the hundreds, and to the thousands. And then where would this number go on your number line? Students should be able to describe, using their place value language, where their number they have would fall on any given number line. Throughout this unit, we want to hear students use precise mathematical vocabulary. Some of the things that we should hear in the classroom include estimation, place value, whole number, and rounding. Students should be asked to use this vocabulary when explaining their thinking to demonstrate precise math vocabulary. All students demonstrate their knowledge. Students will be able to demonstrate their knowledge starting with some scaled number lines. These are the number lines that already have all the numbers on there and kind of tell the student what multiple to round to. As the unit progresses, students should move to an open number line. This is where students have to understand what place they're rounding to and understand what their endpoint and midpoint should be. Students will also be given exit tickets throughout the unit. These exit tickets range from having scale to open number lines as the students progress through their learning. And of course, students can always demonstrate their understanding by playing games. In this game, students are given digit cards and place value cards, and their job is to generate numbers and round to the place to see who can get the closest to 10,000. Throughout the unit, there are some questions that we can use to gauge student understanding of rounding. So for example, how could you use the tool of a number line to help you round? Students should be able to describe and to utilize that number line in rounding numbers. Another question would be, why does rounding 6,982 to the nearest hundred also change the value of the thousands place? Students need to understand that when we're rounding 982 to the next hundred, it should go to 10 hundredths. However, 10 hundredths makes 1,000, which changes our 6,000 into 7,000. And then the last question is, what is rounding and why is it important? Students should be able to see the real world connection and to see how rounding fits into the other math concept they've learned. The MTRs that are really related to this will be 5, 6, and 7. So a lot of using patterns, making real world connection, and assessing the reasonableness of their solutions. So rounding is a skill that can be practiced both at school and at home. So if you're looking for a rounding activity to do at home, consider being a rounding detective. So look around for some numbers in the real world. A great place to look is when you're going shopping. You can find some whole numbers and you can practice using some rounding to make some mental calculations. So, for example, if I'm shopping and I find a dress that costs $25 and some shoes that are $38, I could round the two numbers and then determine how much would that cost all together using my estimation and then actually adding to see how close my estimation was. For this activity, you can use open number lines or you could use scale number lines to practice rounding to any place value. Thanks so much for joining us today to talk about rounding. I hope you can think of all the real world connections you can make, just like the sheepdog did in rounding all the sheep up for his farmer. Have a great day.